which flavor of Hawks are we going to see? Are we going to see the spicy flavor that came up with 41 wins and got one win to get themselves out of the play-in round? Or are we going to see the ice cold, and that was not a pun intended, but the ice cold, lacking flavor Hawks that we saw in games 1 and 2 of this opening round series against the Celtics? So Hawks have had a few days, Jarvis, to reset themselves from another 13-point loss. This is a trend.
Yeah.
5 games against the Celtics this season, 13-point average loss, okay? Average deficit of loss.
Mm-hmm.
But Quin Snyder has not been at the helm for all of those games, right? And even in these last 2 games, we've seen some moments where Quin Snyder's imprint is starting to show. Quin Snyder said earlier today at shoot-arounds that basically the more you're in the physicality of the playoffs, so many things you take from it. We want to compete. He also followed that up, with comments at shoot-around today that actually came courtesy of Trae Young. And listen, we want to take a step back as well because we didn't know this yesterday when we were having a critique of Trae Young's performance, that he did lose his grandfather. So we definitely want to send our condolences to him. I'm sure that that's something that weighs heavily on him. But I also thought, Jarvis, and we can kind of tie this into the question that we're going to pose on Trae, there have been players. Isaiah Thomas, for one of them, when his sister passed away. Brett Favre, although we all know he's vilified now. But back then, when his father passed,
Monday Night Football. Yes,
exactly.
against the Raiders,
Yes, yes. So when we look at those instances, you never know. Trae might have the game of his life in tribute to his grandfather, but also he may have the game of his life because of some things that he stated at practice earlier today, right? So, Jarvis, he talked about the fact that Quin Snyder, because we questioned it yesterday. Quin Snyder, were you talking to Trae Young when you said just shoot the ball? We don't think that's a good look. But Quin Snyder must have kind of qualified that today. What do you think about this, Jarvis? Quote, Trae said that Quin had given him more specifics. We've gotten some new sets, things like that to give Trae some better positions and more attack position. Do you feel like that guidance from Quin Snyder being more specific about his expectations, that we're going to see a more efficient, a more effective Trae?
I think initially we'll see it. Now, as to whether or not it sticks around for 4 quarters or 48 minutes, that's what I don't have an answer to. Like, because I feel like those guys are receptive to Quin because he's given them direction in these last 21 games, and it has worked for them. Because, like you said, guys want to be coached. NBA players want to be coached. You can say all you want about players being spoiled as today. They're uncoachable and all that stuff. I don't believe that. I believe good players want to be coached, and they want to be told how they can be better players, because at the end of the day, they stand to get financial gain from that. You know what I mean? And also, financial gain comes, wins and all of this stuff. Like, there are a lot of guys in this league that understand like what it takes to get to us the next level. And I think that this roster, I believe a lot, even John Collins included. I know John Collins that wants to be better. I know he wants to be able to be consistent. I know he doesn't think that, hey, I'm gonna go out here and just flail around and just trying to figure it out and collect this check. No. I don't believe that. These guys want to be better, and I think that initially, we'll probably see a nice surge in that first quarter as this game gets going. But you know me, I'm gonna be sitting back with my arms folded. It's like, all right, what it's gonna look like in the third quarter, or what it's gonna look like in the beginning of the second quarter, because you know for a fact that Boston is going to retaliate.
I love the way you said that, retaliate.
Yes, they're coming back with a vengeance. Absolutely.
Yeah, but you're not being dramatic with that, because they're on a mission. Like, for the Boston Celtics, it's war right now. It's war, and it's been war since last season. And Joe Mazzulla has shown that he is the perfect guy to be able to keep them focused. Even when they swoon for a few minutes within a game or even a couple of games, it doesn't last long. So the question becomes, like you said, the Celtics are ready for the Hawks. They already know that the Hawks are going to come out with all guns blazing through the first quarter, maybe even through the first half. So what will be important is Quin Snyder is a teacher. Can he educate, and can he get his guys to buy in at halftime? in a couple of ways, Jarvis, because he could be getting them to buy in if somehow they go into that locker room with a substantial lead, right? Because they played his game in the first half, or they could be down. Meaning, no matter how much they executed his game plan, they just still couldn't get ahead of the Celtics. The question becomes, and you made an excellent point, what does Trae Young do? What does Quin Snyder do to make sure that the good of what they do in the first half, whether you're up by a lot or down by a lot, comes into play in the second half and actually gets you a win? Because Trae is going to, whether we like to hear it or not, I still know that the front court is where the exploitation of the Celtics can come because they play small ball.
Amen.
But at the end of the day, this offense is probably still going to ultimately run through Trae and to some extent DeJounte. And so it'll be interesting to kind of see what Quin Snyder does. And like you said, whether or not there will be buy-in, not just for one quarter, but 48 minutes.
Yeah, and take care of the basketball. Love on the basketball. Don't be careless with the basketball. And I think, and I like the way DeJounte has been playing.
Yes.
Don't get me wrong. He's not been the lockdown guy that we expected him to be, but he has been the most consistent defensive player. I think that's pretty safe to say, along with Clint Capella. So you pretty much know what you're going to get from those guys in that out of the starting five. So, and I think that I think DeAndre Hunter is due for one of those games because he, like I said, no expectations, but I think he's due for one of those. However, I think he's due for one of those games because he tends to drop like he did against the Heat last year. Like, wait a minute, who is this dude and where did y'all do with the other DeAndre Hunter? Right. I think he's probably due for one of those games, and I think it would be fitting for him to do it on the home court tonight at State Farm Arena, which is going to be super packed, by the way. So, yeah, you guys make sure that if you're going to the game, make sure you get there early because I think it's going to be a movie, as we know that when something is popping off in Atlanta, everybody's going to be in the building.
Indeed. And remember, guys, it's a 7 o'clock tip, not 7:30. So do what you have to do to get
not 8 o'clock for some of y'all.
This is not CNBC making an arrival, making an appearance. It's not about you, Atlanta. It's not about you, ATL. It's about getting your team back in this series, right?
Right.
And, like you said, we need to, because DeJounte is going to be DJ. We've seen DJ more consistently, especially of late. Clint, we're good. Trae, if you could just kind of stick to what Jarvis said and kind of protect the ball.
Love on the basketball.
Dre, right. And John, but I go back to what you said about Dre. It's got to be Dre Day. Because if they're playing small ball, the Celtics are, then that means small ball usually happens on the wing.
Yeah.
That's you, Dre. That's your space. We need you to show up and show out on the wing. And then do like you also did a couple nights ago. Remember when he got 10 points in one quarter and then he disappeared?
Yeah.
Don't do that. Get 10 points in a quarter and go get 10 more in another quarter and keep getting 10 if that's what you feel like doing. And, if we can
make them make the adjustment because Jalen, who Derek White is going to be guarding. He's going to be guarding Trae. Marcus Smart's probably going to guard DeJounte. And, that leaves Jason Tatum. Man, God, they got a lot of dudes they can just throw on ball. It just, it's just like, hey, go guard them. And Al Horford, you just kind of, you do whatever you do. So when you have that many guys in that starting lineup, like you have to make them make an adjustment. So whoever is guarding you, DeAndre, and try to take advantage or try to at least exploit some instance it gets to the point where Missoula is like, all right, well, we're going to have to make an adjustment on this one. And then once they make an adjustment, that's once that's when you start playing that tennis game, right? The back and forth, and you can kind of stay in the game and not necessarily have those guys go on 10-0 runs and all that stuff. So you want to be able to stay in the game and be close in that fourth quarter. So, if you do have to make a run, it's not trying to cut it down to single digits because you're down by 20. You know what I mean? So you just want to be able to compete throughout the game and make them make adjustments because right now you're down 0-2. So you've been making all the adjustments. So I think that if they're able to do that, I feel like they'll at least be in the game in the fourth quarter. And, once you get into the fourth quarter, pretty much anything can happen.
Anybody's game.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think, too, if we can, speaking of that small forward play, right? Or really in that forward space. We don't know if AJ Griffin will actually be a part of the rotation. Quinn's been using an 8-man versus 9-man rotation.
Yeah.
But we do need to see Sadiq Bey return to Sadiq Bey form. And
Yes, he has to hit
Jalen
shots.
Johnson, because you got Jalen Johnson got pulled after 5 minutes. So there was something that Quinn saw immediately that he didn't like. So Jalen Johnson, you've got to have a strong start. Sadiq Bey, you got to go back to it because you're one of the few weapons who's consistent behind the arc. And Trae Young,
40%.
Exactly.
Since the trade deadline.
Else,
Like, come on.
If you don't give anything else,
Gotta
Trae
have it.
Young, you've got to make sure you make good basketball decisions. So when you're in a position, when there's a set that Quin Snyder has already drawn up for you, and you are in position to attack smartly, attack wisely, because we do need you to attack the basket. It was 54-54. It was one of the few places where the Hawks actually held their own with the Celtics in game 2. Go back to that. All 5 starters attack, but attack wisely, because you know what the Celtics did do, Jarvis? They absolutely had a field day with points off turnovers.
Yeah.
Not so much for the Hawks. So anyway, it's going to be interesting to see what happens at State Farm Arena tonight, but we are definitely hoping for a W, because we'd love to come back and talk about more basketball, winning basketball from the Hawks come Monday. Now, you want to speak of winning? Who's a winner, Jarvis? Our everydayers.
Absolutely.
Winners,
Come
always
on now.
winners, because as
Big
long
time
as they
winners.
drop by this show and they tell other people to keep stopping by, then you're an everydayer in our book, and you're a winner in our book. So don't forget, we are always your first stop, like always your first stop, ATL Day Ones. That can be your first stop on YouTube. That can be your first stop wherever you download your podcast. But whatever you do, everydayers, even on the weekend, if you got some free time, check out ATL Day Ones.